Hey guys, welcome to my Doppelganger Explained video, where I'll be diving into the most complicated spell released in update 1.1 and run through all the little mechanics and details you'll need to know in order to use Doppelganger effectively in your Dreadhunger games. So in simple terms, Doppelganger allows the Thrall to manipulate what the crew see by controlling a clone of a player of their choice for a short time. Now you may notice I use the word clone, and that's because Doppelganger doesn't change your own character's appearance, rather it spawns a shadow you can control that looks like the player you select. This clone has its own limited health, and losing this health will not affect your main character's health. When the clone's health runs out, the clone will vanish into thin air, and the Thrall controlling the Doppel will return to their original body, which will still be in the same location the spell was cast from, including the ship, even if it's moved while you were controlling your Doppel. It's important to note that your original body will go completely invisible during the duration of your Doppel, entering what seems to be its own extended spirit walk, so you don't need to worry about stashing your body somewhere safe while using Doppelganger. So how exactly does Doppelganger work? Well, you cast the spell in a similar manner to Cannibals, in that you need to point at a target and press left click to select them. The player you select is the player you'll create a copy of, and thus the player you'll be able to frame for a Thrall action. But unlike Cannibals, you can cast Doppelganger on your Thrall partner to copy their appearance too. So if the crew catch a Doppelganger in action, they can't be sure that the character model Doppeled is in fact a crewmate. This spell has created so much opportunity for mischief and frame jobs. There are going to be some seriously brain-melting moments. But the crew are not without their own Doppel counterplays. Catching a Doppel before they do their Thrall action will be key, as they are fragile and easily dealt with once identified. But how do you catch someone that hasn't yet performed a Thrall action? Well, Doppelgangers can't really speak without giving away the voice of the player controlling the Doppel. So if the crew make the effort to speak to each other, particularly those boarding the ship, and a player doesn't reply, it should immediately alarm the crew to the possibility of a Doppel. This won't be so clear-cut in public lobbies, as player voice chat and communication is inconsistent at best. It's also possible to check if someone's a Doppel by hitting them a few times with an axe or shooting them with a gun, as this should remove all, if not most, of their limited health. But this would be a much more chaotic method, and I wouldn't recommend it. So the clone created by Doppelganger has a certain amount of health that scales with the level of charge the Thrall had when they cast the spell. This health will by default slowly decrease over time, similar to hunger, at a rate of 1 health over 2 seconds, and act as an indicator for how long the Doppel has before the Thrall spell is over and the player will return to their body. If the Doppel is attacked during its duration, it'll lose health at the same rate any other character would, but this won't impact the Doppelganger's length of time it can last for, as long as it doesn't lose all its health. This is because maximum health controls the Doppelganger's duration, not current health, unless it's attacked too much and does indeed lose all its health. The Doppel will then crumple to the floor before disappearing. The fact the Doppel's body doesn't hang around means there's not going to be proof a Doppel was on board, and it will be up to the player who killed a Doppel to convince the crew that they're telling the truth. Now let's talk spell duration. As it stands, each tier of Doppelganger changes the amount of health your Doppel has, and thus the duration the Doppel can remain alive for. A tier 1 cast of Doppelganger has 30 health and will thus last 60 seconds. Tier 2 has 45 health and should last 90 seconds, and Tier 3 has 60 health and will last 120 seconds. Doppelganger's cooldown is 180 seconds, making it on par with Whiteout. And the cooldown begins when you cast Doppel, not when you return to your body, similar to how Whiteout works. The Doppel's maximum health decrease works in the same way as Hunger does, in that the health a Doppel loses by default cannot be restored with syringes or any other healing. But unlike Hunger, eating food doesn't fix it either. Death is unavoidable for Doppelgangers. Now if a doppel does eat food, it'll consume the food but not transfer the hunger and warmth regeneration to its caster's original body. To add to this, doppelgangers do not have heat or hunger and cannot die to cold. Now for those PvP fiends out there getting excited to use Doppelganger to attack other players, there is a measure in place to prevent this from getting out of hand. 100% of the damage your Doppel deals to other players, which is actions like shooting or whacking another player, will be reflected onto your Doppel's health, killing your Doppel faster every time you attack. So if you shoot someone with a gun as a tier 2 cast Doppel, you'll kill your own Doppel in one hit when the gunshot hits them, as you'll deal 52 damage to the player, and that damage will also be applied to your Doppel, dealing 52 damage to a 45 max health Doppelganger, thus killing it. I expect it'll be popular to use Doppel as an extra hit, so to speak, allowing thralls an extra 60 health in a fight if needed. But I don't see this getting too out of hand, given that Doppels will be dying quickly as they sustain damage from both others and themselves. A few bits of Doppel trivia for you now. Doppelgangers spawn in with the inventory of the thrall who cast the spell, and at the end of the Doppel's duration, the thrall will return with the inventory the Doppel had when it died. This makes Doppelganger an excellent resource stealer if left unchecked. Doppels cannot cast spells or use thrall vision, but seem to be able to interact with everything else as you'd expect. One interesting use of Doppelganger is using it as a sort of dodge mechanic. Seeing that Doppelganger removes your original body from harm's way, you could in theory use it in a similar way to Spirit Walk to escape a nitro explosion untouched. Well, your Doppel would die, but you would live. Interestingly, you can use Doppel while you're in the brig to spawn your clone outside the brig and run around on the ship as normal. You'll have no starting items given you're in the brig, but if you find a key, you could return to your cell and let yourself out. That being said, the moment you open the cell door, your Doppel dies, and you're back in your body, even if your Doppel had health remaining when the brig door opens. If you cast Doppelganger whilst you're in the brig, and pick up a bunch of loot on the ship, but are unable to get yourself a key to let your body out, the Doppel will break like a piñata on death, with all the loot you'd picked up as a Doppel exploding out from the crumpling Doppel's body. But if you cast Doppel from the brig, pick up a bunch of loot and are then able to let yourself out afterwards, your original body will receive all the loot your Doppel had picked up the moment you're released from the brig. Another good use of Doppelganger is to survive cold nights. Since you leave your original body behind in Spirit Walk when you cast Doppelganger, you can use Doppel to survive the night, as your original body won't take heat or hunger damage while your Doppel's in use. Given that the Doppel also doesn't suffer from these setbacks, Doppel will be very useful at night, keeping your original body safe for up to 2 minutes. With the introduction of the second spell, Hush, you can coordinate with your partner to cast Hush while you cast Doppelganger for maximum effect. It'll be borderline impossible to tell the difference between a Doppel and a real player, given that no one can talk during Hush, and it will allow for some truly chaotic, high tension moments. And that's everything I have for you on Doppelganger. I hope this information will help you to use Doppel more effectively, or to more easily catch a Doppel before it's too late. If I missed anything Doppelganger related, please comment the information below. I'm very interested in finding out as many details as I can about the new spells, particularly Doppelganger. Please leave a like and subscribe for more Dreadhunger videos. I also stream live on Twitch every Tuesday morning, Australian Eastern Standard Time, so come by there and see some games live sometime. But in the meantime, good luck out in the Arctic, and watch out for Bongo.